I have beaten Baldur's Gate 3 in a lot of ways, but as of my last video, I was kinda stumped for ideas. So I decided to look through all the game's items and find the one that would be the hardest to win with. And I think I have done just that. Every single item you throw deals some sort of damage. Want to throw a shirt? That's 1 damage minimum. Want to toss a helmet or boots? Same thing there. But there is one item which literally does nothing when thrown, and that item is underwear. There are other items like keys or books that also deal no damage, but these are common and can be found everywhere. Underwear, however, is exceedingly rare in the earlier parts of the game. So can I beat Honor Mode solo while only using underwear? Let's find out. Dwergar for the permanent invisibility feels like a no-brainer for this. I still did not know how I was going to do any real damage, but we'll figure that part out later. As for my starter class, Bard just seemed like the best option as it gets access to so many proficiencies. Importantly, I also chose Urchin as my background, giving my sleight of hand and stealth skills +4. All that's left now is just to pick an appropriate name. We wake up on the Nautiloid, and straight away, while we technically have a weapon available, 2 in fact, throwing it won't do us any good, so it's time to just run past all of the tutorial fights. Down on the beach, we find a couple of nice people that decide to donate their clothes to our cause. The amount of underwear you can actually get in the earlier parts of the game is very limited, so making sure to recruit as many companions as possible to borrow theirs will be necessary. Arriving at the Grove, I attempt to sneak away as per usual, though here I notice that if you sneak away before Sevlor even gets his turn, he will be stuck just sounding the horn every turn until you walk back in. Anyway, with that solved, Sevlor easily disposes of the goblins by himself, with just a couple of casualties. As I do want Will's deadly weapon, I make sure to resurrect him. We still have no way of doing anything to anyone, but collecting the Mind Flayer parasite from these people here gave me the first clue to how I was going to do it. Using Disguise Self to enter the Goblin Camp, we get level 3 for even more stealth. Got gladly donates her parasite to our cause, and I make my way over to Ethel, making sure to not provoke her. She will be our one and only source of Hill Giant strength potions, which will be very important. I head down into the Underdark and make it all the way over to the colony without any hiccups on the way whatsoever. And after long resting, get the ability to consume our previously found parasites. After scaring away some Gith, we get level 4, and I decide to put a level into Wizard to go and collect Shovel. While I'm at it, I also cross the river from the Blighted Village, where there's a hidden skeleton which has the Smuggler's Ring. It gives another 2 to our stealth for the low cost of 1 charisma. After speaking to Karlak and buying out Ethel's entire stock of strength potions, we are now basically out of things we can do in Act 1. There is still no way for us to hurt anyone. We can mildly annoy them, but that's about it. So it's time to head over to the Grimforge and walk straight into Act 2. I ambush Karnas, and since I'm a bard, easily convince him to give us his lantern. Protection from the Shadow Curse lets us make it all the way over to the Gold Goblin for an easy level 5. Now getting our race trait of Infinite Permanent Invisibility. In Moonrise, I walk straight past Ketheric without triggering any dialogue and head straight up to Balthasar's room. Turns out that one of our companions actually will get to be a bit useful here. By interacting with this altar, Gale can craft the so-called Shadow Lantern. Interestingly enough, we now have everything we theoretically need to beat the game. Before leaving, I make sure to grab the note from Ketheric's wife in his bedroom, as it will be mandatory later. Down in the bottom of Moonrise is a vendor that sells the Marksmanship hat, giving +1 to all of our thrown attack rolls. Right outside the House of Healing, on another hidden skeleton, is the Assassin's Short Sword, for advantage on all stealth checks, and just outside Last Light, in this house here, is the Penumbral Armor, for +3 to all stealth checks as long as we are at least obscured. With the Shadow Lantern now acquired, it is time to learn the one illithid power which makes this run at all possible, Ability Drain. Once per turn after making, importantly, any attack roll, the target receives a -1 penalty to their corresponding ability score. So, if you were to, for instance, use an Eldritch Blast, which uses Charisma, the enemy would in turn lose 1 Charisma. Since throwing uses your strength for the check, this gives anyone we throw our underwear at -1 strength. It may only work once per turn, but using our underwear now actually does something. And there is actually one positive thing about underwear not dealing any damage when thrown. As long as we do not miss, anyone that is not already hostile won't even get mad upon getting underwear thrown at them. This lets us repeatedly drain their strength from however high it might be all the way down to 1 without engaging combat at all. Apart from only being usable once per turn though, ability drain has another built-in restriction, only letting it work until the target has 1 in any stat, which of course is where our Shadow Lantern comes in. It lets us summon a Wraith, which can go invisible just by moving, pretty useful, but even better than that, has the ability Strength Drain. As the name implies, it removes 3 strength from anyone attacked by it. But the Strength Drain ability also comes with a restriction. It can only be used on enemies. Thankfully, as stated before, even though hitting a target with the underwear doesn't bother them, missing with it does. And so, after draining all the strength of anyone and engaging in combat, we can now immediately use our Wraith's Strength Drain to further reduce their strength to 0, instantly proccing Atrophy. Atrophy triggers on any enemy that reaches 0 in any ability, instantly killing it. The poor Ox that got to be my test subject here actually carries another item we really want, the Shapeshifter's Boon, giving a 1d4 bonus to every check. Before being able to progress any further, we need level 7. The first easy XP we can get are the Thorms, but they are nowhere near enough. So it's time to head back to Act 1 for some unfinished business. First up, Ethel. After purchasing as many potions as I will ever need this run, I just started chucking my pants at her. She does move around quite a bit, so it did take a while to do so. Great throw me. But after a while, I got her strength all the way down. Time to simply summon in my shadow and purposely miss her. She uses her last remaining moments to hold person me instead of running away. Bad choice, Ethel. Next up is Grym. With a massive 24 strength, if I were to just enter combat, I have nowhere near enough underwear to remove all of his strength, and throwing a couple and then just running away is not an option either, as all the stacks of ability drain is removed at the end of any combat. So instead, it is time to utilize our massive amount of stealth for the first time. Since Shovel brought out Grym, he has yet to notice us, so by sneaking, we can attack him from up on this cliff without triggering combat. And after throwing all of our underwear, we can then simply cast Feather Falling and jump down, carefully sneaking past him to recollect them before teleporting back up. Repeating this process over and over until he has no strength left. At this point, I used Shovel to trigger the encounter, tricking Grym to walk over to him. And after entering combat with my shadow, I noticed that for some reason Grym's strength stat had increased from 24 to 28. Thankfully, I still had one more turn myself, letting me reduce it one more time to put it back down to 3 for an easy atrophy trigger. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not hit the subscribe button? I post these weekly. Yep, definitely weekly. It's free and you can always just unsubscribe later. With Grym dead, that is most of the major bosses done in Act 1. However, since we have not done any small encounters at all, we are still only halfway to level 6, and nowhere near level 7. So I guess it's time to head over to the creche and clear it out. Here is where the weakness of only using underwear really shows itself. While we can destroy most enemies after entering combat immediately, draining all their strength takes such a long time. The least amount of strength any enemy has is 10, which means that I need to, at a minimum, throw 7 times in order to just take out one person, sometimes going as high as 17 or even higher in Grym's case. And well, in order to get level 7, we need a lot of XP. I spent around an hour or so just throwing underwear at the gift. It was about as fun as it sounds, and after all was said and done, it was not even enough for level 6. For some reason, throwing underwear at any of the gifts inside the Inquisitor's chamber immediately angers them. To be fair, that is probably the normal response. So instead of fighting them, I just blew the creche up. To get the remaining XP for level 6, I just went into the Gauntlet of Shar and asked Yurgir for it. Level 6 gives us magical secrets, letting me pick spells from other classes. Here we can choose Pass Without Trace, giving a massive plus 10 to stealth checks. I also picked up Haste here, as it's always just nice to have. While I'm already in the Gauntlet of Shar, I let out Balthazar and let the Justiciar take care of him. Just another 40 minutes of waiting, I guess. At the bottom of the well in the Blighted Village is an amethyst, which can be slotted into the Necromancy of Thay for another +1 to all ability checks. Still needing well over half a level, it's time to clear out all of Moonrise. And I mean it, I literally had to clear everyone out. All the people up front and inside. everyone in the cellar, everyone outside, everyone upstairs, and even after all of that, I was still a tiny bit short of level 7. Don't even ask how long this took. I don't want to remember. To get the final couple hundred XP points, I went to the Grym Forge and took out my anger on some fellow Dwergar. Finally, level 7 is here. It gives us just one thing, but this thing is the most important part of anything we have gotten thus far. Greater invisibility. This is the entire reason for why I have been stacking stealth like a madman. It works just like normal invisibility. However, as long as we succeed a stealth check after doing something that would normally break invisibility, we remain invisible. This stealth check starts at 15, the next check is 17, and after that it increases by 1 per check. Finally, I decide to walk into the main hall where Ketheric sits, and since I did not touch Minthara, she's here getting dragged away to the cellar. However, because the questionnaires are already dead, she's just standing down here and I can just tell her to follow me and walk away without the guards even caring. And since no one else is alive either, walking straight out works just fine. That is 1 more underwear we can use, putting our total up to 8, which is quite significant. I free the trapped gnomes, who are also free to just leave, before heading over to free the Night Song. Time for the incredibly tough Moonrise fight. 1 whole acolyte, which I missed. This is the first time where we actually sort of have to fight someone normally, and it does not go well. Just to take out this random 35 HP acolyte, I need 7 turns, which means getting hit by her 7 times. Finally, it is time for Ketheric. From some prior testing on another save, I noticed that Ketheric actually cannot die to atrophy. He is the only enemy in the game which, after having atrophy proc, just doesn't care. I guess J.K. Simmons is just that cool. So we are going to need to tackle this first rooftop fight in another way, and it's actually pretty easy to do. By hasting Aelin, we don't even need to do anything. She just easily one-turns Ketheric. And after breaking combat, it is time to follow him down and begin the real fight. Ketheric is actually not hostile until you enter his field of vision and trigger the dialogue, so by sneaking at the edge of it, we can toss our underwear at him without provoking him. Since we have 8 underwear, that is 8 out of his 20 strength drained. Now we somehow need to retrieve them without being spotted at all, and this is why we needed greater invisibility, as we can just cast it and collect them all by succeeding a few stealth checks. Because Ketheric is immune to atrophy, it will be very important to actually bring his strength all the way down to 1, so I make sure to also throw 3 underwear at him while invisible. With 9 strength remaining, I return to right outside his vision cone and throw all of the underwear once more. Now it's time to actually start the fight. But first, I summon in Scratch, give him invisibility, and walk him all the way over to the Night Song. To get around the fact that Ketheric cannot die from atrophy, all we have to do is convince him, using the letter we got a while back, that what he is doing is wrong, having him skip right to phase 2 and Merkel. I free Night Song with Scratch. And since Merkel right here technically still is Ketheric, all the strength we removed from him is also removed from Merkel. This is why it was so important to drain his strength all the way down to 1. I can now summon in my shadow, and using a haste potion on myself, in turn haste it. And with 2 actions available, all I have to do is strength drain Merkel twice, removing his last remaining strength, instantly proccing atrophy. First god defeated with underwear. That's kind of embarrassing for Merkel, really. Time to head over to Act 3. First though is the ever so annoying astral plane fight. I could skip past the first couple of gith, but this next fight is mandatory. If the Emperor dies in this fight in any way, it's just straight up game over, so I don't really have time to just sit and throw underwear at them for 30 turns. Again though, we don't actually need to do anything. If we just haste the Emperor, he can easily solo this fight. The extra action lets him use Extract Brain after stunning any target for some not okay damage. With the gifts dead, we can finally enter Act 3, and upon approaching the first checkpoint, we get help by the gnomes we saved earlier, and can follow them to purchase the Nimble Finger Gloves. They give +2 to any gnome that wears them, but we're a dwarf, so we will only get +1. There is a way of tricking the game to still giving us the +2 though. All we have to do is transform into one using Disguise Self. With this extra 2 to dexterity, after getting level 8 and using some feats, we can now get our dex all the way up to 22 for a +6 to all stealth checks. I make a beeline straight over to the lower city, and here is the greatest vendor to ever exist ever. This beautiful man right here. He sells underwear. Unlimited underwear. I bought just a couple. 100 or so, you know, no need to overdo it. Time to retrieve the final nether stones. Gortash here won't stand a chance against our newfound power. He only has 14 strength, which means that just throwing 11 underwear at him will be enough. But just like the fight in the creche, if Gortash gets underwear thrown at him, he will immediately become hostile alongside his army of steel watchers. Good thing we have greater invisibility. After using up all of the turns, I just had to hide away in this corner here to refresh it and then drain his remaining strength. Before engaging combat though, positioning will be very important, since our shadow does not have the best initiation after all. To not get instantly destroyed by all the steel watchers, I decide to summon it in on the other side of this door here. This makes Gortash dash perfectly over to it, and after a few turns of Steel Watchers doing whatever this strategy is supposed to be, our shadow gets his turn. Bye bye Gortash. 2 out of 3 stones collected. Before going after Orin though, I got the itch to take on Raphael for the first time in a long while. And it just so happens that he's patiently waiting here on the 2nd floor of Sharess Caress. Currently, Raphael is considered friendly, so he does not mind if we throw stuff at him, even if we miss. And so, after throwing like 30 underwear at him and draining all his strength, I of course accept his contract. You know, it would be rude to not do it after all that. In the Devil's Fee, I borrow some things from Helsec and open the portal into literal hell, running straight over to destroy the contract we made with Raphael literally 5 minutes ago. And after ignoring some annoying person that rudely locks us out of leaving, it is time to face the master of the house. Before starting the encounter, I give my shadow invisibility, which lets it stay out of combat and get 1 free action in. 666 health or not, the devil is dead. Killing Raphael though turns out to be the easy part. The real annoying part comes now. We still need to eliminate all the remaining cambions, Jurgir and Corilla, in order to escape. If we just do some quick math, each cambion has 18 strength, Jurgir has 22 and Corilla has 14. For atrophy to trigger, they all need to be at 3 strength. So that is a minimum of 120 turns. Approximately 40 turns can be gained for free from 4 greater invisibility thanks to this potion of angelic slumber I found. But since the restoration faucets don't work after Raphael comes back, it is only enough to take out Jurgir and the single cambion. I guess it's time to kite the remaining 5 for 75 turns straight. All in all, it almost took 3 hours to escape the House of Hope. But after a quick underwear collecting route, I was finally free. Get me out of here. To get to Orin and the final netherstone, we gotta go through Saravok. Since this encounter also has a dialogue check, just like the Ketheric fight did, we are free to drain all the echoes without them caring. Saravok himself sits just a tiny bit too far away, so I just used greater invisibility to get the job done. Easy enough. With the Amulet of Baal now in our possession, it was time for Orin. Since this is honor mode, Orin gets an ability called Dread Pursuit. It teleports her to any target that attacks her, letting her get 1 free attack in. But since we are invisible, she cannot attack us. This makes it so we can move her gradually over the course of a few turns, all the way out of the Baal Temple over to the waypoint here, leaving her without any allies all by herself. With the 3rd netherstone now collected, it is time to take on the brain. But importantly, before approaching it, I grab a Globe of Invulnerability scroll, as I will need it in order to beat the game, but the use case won't be what you think it is. As per usual, we fail all the rolls against the brain, and since Illithids simply are superior, we of course become one. Time for the final encounter. I start off the encounter with greater invisibility, and make sure to say goodbye to the Emperor, won't need him anyways. Since we are invisible, everyone just skips their turn apart from the Crown of Karsus, which hits me for some quite unpleasant but not too high damage. I got to discover here too that apparently you cannot use Karsus' Compulsion while polymorphed. On the next turn, greater invisibility keeps me invisible after using Karsus' Compulsion, letting me open the portal without anyone noticing. Just the brain left now. It has 16 strength, which normally would make it impossible for us to get it low enough since we only have 5 turns to do so. However, since Illithid's Mind Sanctuary works in a very dumb way, whenever we throw in this form, the brain gets 2 stacks of ability drain instead of just the 1 it's supposed to get. I used the first 3 turns just throwing underwear at the brain, bringing its ability score down from 16 to 10. On the second to last turn, I throw one more time, but instead of ending my turn, make sure to fly down and summon in my shadow. Now we just have one more turn in order to kill the brain or we lose. I use a haste potion, which, since again, Mind Sanctuary is dumb, does not use up a bonus action, and throw one last time, bringing the brain down to 6 strength. At this point, you might think that it's just going to be as easy as with Merkle, but this is not the case. Since Strength Drain deals a small amount of damage, the brain's brain quakes will trigger, most definitely killing it, but if it somehow were to survive, it will still get slowed, making it so we cannot haste it, and therefore preventing it from using 2 strength drains regardless. So I had to do a bit of thinking, and I came up with a stupid but plausible workaround. The brain quakes will only trigger if the brain actually takes damage. So by intentionally placing a globe of invulnerability over the brain to grant it immunity to all damage, I can use strength drain on it once without triggering them. Then, using my final action, I haste my shadow, breaking the globe, but giving it another action, letting it strength drain the brain one more time. This was way more effort than it was worth. But hey, at least we made it, I guess. Why did I do this? Thank you for watching regardless. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.